I think today is so important for Palestinians and the people in the Middle East because 2 years ago, this day, we had an attack on Israelis, and in the aftermath of that day, and huge destruction in Gaza, a genocide happening. And where do you find Israel today? If you were to compare what Israel was before October the 7th and what Israel is today, how do you compare it?
Nima, I've been following Bibi Netanyahu's career since before he was finance minister, and then while he was finance minister, and then his time in the prime ministership. And I hesitate to say this because I'm not a big fan of the great man or any man, Hitler, for example, theory of international relations and the evolution of state power. I don't think one person is really all that important to it. In this case, I might be brought to make an exception because what I have watched Bibi Netanyahu do since I started following him not only is orchestrate his rise to power on the back of Mark Rich's oil company, Glencore, and then later other companies that spun off from it, which got Israel oil on a constant basis at a discounted price and really gave the spin up to the economy in Israel that Netanyahu then, of course, took credit for. All of this illegal as hell in international relations, illegal, and even at times illegal in terms of domestic Israeli law and also his great mentor's law, the United States. But what happened there was not only did he make Israel successful, he got a lot of money himself, personal money out of deals, much the way Prince Bandar schooled the Levant in the process of doing. You always get at least $1 billion every time you do a deal. So I watched this guy very closely, and then I watched him orchestrate very carefully and dramatically. And I know in my heart this is true, the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. When he did that, he closed off the only avenue remaining for Israel to be a liberal democratic state. Note, I did not say a liberal Jewish democratic state because that's an impossibility. It's a contradiction of terms. The moment you put Jewish in there, it's a theocracy. Whether it's religious or not is irrelevant. It's a theocracy when you put Jewish in there. So he got rid of the Labor Party, got rid of everything about that party and its power. Not everyone in the country, but all those with influence, barred politics to them and took over Israel with the only brief interim session, if you will, being a person equally infamous to Bibi Netanyahu, Ariel Sharon, who you may recall actually led the invasion of Lebanon in 1981, 82. So since that time, the prospect for Israel being taken over by the original Ben Gurion type Zionists was always there, always latent. But there was this side of the political apparatus in Israel that did pretend to be at least a liberal democratic aspirant. They never were a liberal democracy. They can't be and be a Jewish state too. You just can't be. So it's a contradiction of terms. So Bibi did away with all of that. That's where we are today. And we're at the end of his long career that he has fashioned. And that end will be total destruction for the state of Israel, certainly for the Jewish state of Israel, if it even stays a state at all, and the end of Bibi Netanyahu. But it's going to be a glorious ending. And that's Bibi's dream, and that's his wish, a glorious ending. He will go down, he thinks, in the annals of the new state of Israel, which will be greater inevitably and encompass the entire Levant, possibly. He will go down as the starter, the creator, the God of that. I think he's dead wrong. I think he's going to go down in infamy, much the same way Hitler did in his bunker. But that's Bibi's aspiration, and he wants to take the United States with him, success or failure.
when I look at the region and Israel is talking about seven front war, they're talking about Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Iran, all these countries around Israel.
Don't leave
They're
out
not most of
don't
Iran
leave
is not
out East Africa and possibly China
that.
and maybe Turkey.
The enemies are growing.
They're growing.
The number of enemies are growing. Yeah.
It's like Caesar said at one time, my enemies are legion.
Larry, if I look, if to be sincere, I don't see any sort of win for Israel unless they take credit for what has happened in Syria. The only place that they can say they could achieve something is Syria, which I'm not sure that they have achieved it.
No, nor am I. Turkey's still looking at that with question marks all over it. And we're looking at the regime in Damascus with question marks all over it. David Petraeus' fawning performance notwithstanding, we're still looking at a man that stood by while people were beheaded. And from what I'm being told by sources in Damascus and Aleppo, is still killing people, especially Christians, Alawites, and others with whom he does not necessarily agree.
Despite the strategic, mindset of Israelis, something big has happened during the conflict in the Middle East, which was the public opinion all around the world, Larry. You know, the way that people are talking about Israel is totally different from what it was before October the 7th,
You bet.
before what has happened to, many of, people in the even in the mainstream media, they were so cautious about the way that they're approaching Israel. They're talking about Israel. That's not there anymore.
No.
That has changed. I don't know if Netanyahu and the people around him and those people in the United States, Zionists, who are trying to support Netanyahu and his administration, would be able to put it back in the same place it was before.
They're trying. They're trying this business of the 250 state legislatures that went to Israel. Now, Larry Ellison's purchase of half the communicative capability of the empire and other things like that. They're trying big time. They've got billions deployed to restore things. Nothing, Nima, nothing. I listened to Candace Young this morning at length. I listened to it 3 times. I wanted to hear every word she said. She's a very articulate woman. And they have been done major damage by what's happening around the assassination of Charlie Kirk. More and more, I must conclude that Israel had something to do with it. I have to. The facts are just so solid. And as Hercule Poirot said, and I mentioned a couple of times, I think to you once, motive, method, and means. And the motive is certainly there, because if I'm to believe Candace Young, and she keeps saying she wants to show the videos, she wants people to look, she wants people to answer her from TP. And what she's saying in essence is that not only was Charlie the biggest bad guy on the street, and I don't use that derisively, in terms of Trump's election, and in terms of MAGA and its cohesiveness under Trump, he was dramatically departing from that position. And he was doing it over the issue with Israel. That had to be stopped. And I think there is only one guess as to who thought it had to be stopped. Now, whether Netanyahu had anything to do with it directly or not, I mean, I go back to Rabin, he orchestrated that one. Or the billionaires or people behind them had something to do with it. I don't know. But I listened to her repeatedly, and she's very articulate. She's very on message. And I want to see what she's going to bring out further, because she says there are videos, for example, of Charlie saying essentially, I want you back in talking points. And I've watched some of the videos of the young people asking Charlie at the final meetings he was able to orchestrate about the situation in Israel. And I've listened to the audience applause when someone asks him a question about, isn't it too close? Isn't the relationship dangerous for us? Isn't too much money going to Israel? Shouldn't that money be going to the American taxpayer? Shouldn't we be? All these questions are coming out, and Charlie was just entertaining them. And the audience was really cheering when people would ask these questions. I'm told there were 5,000 people in that audience. So this is doing irreparable damage to Israel's tight relationship with especially 40-year-olds and 30-year-olds and unders in America, and ultimately doing damage to Netanyahu's whole propaganda campaign. And even this morning, when I was driving down to do the interview with the Germans, I fell into a piece on YouTube. I've got to go back to it and find it and read it more thoroughly. But it was talking about the campaign that Israel has just launched under Larry Ellison's leadership, and it'll go into CBS, it'll go into whatever his son has bought now and will be running. And this campaign is designed to reverse some of these losses. And I'm reading some of the ingredients of the campaign. It says, we must get into the textbooks. We must get into the schools. We must get into every place of education in America and re-educate the young people in America about the importance of Israel, about the absolute necessity for the relationship between the United States and Israel. We must do that. Well, they're already there. They're in every state, in every education chain, in every state. We already have history books that have been rewritten by the Israelis in Virginia, for example, that retell the story of Palestine and Israel and the Nakba. They don't even mention the Nakba. So why are they so desperate? Well, they're desperate because they see that all of that is going by the wayside now. They're going to have to rebuild, refurbish the entire propaganda campaign. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I think the American people are decisively, especially young people, and that's the future, moving away from this relationship. And they might move away dramatically compared with what's been so slow paced because of what's happening in Gaza, which isn't going to stop. I don't think it's going to stop. And if it does stop, it's going to be clear to them at least that this was a cooked game. I don't even think it's going to stop. But if it stops suddenly and Hamas agrees to everything and Israel starts implementing the plan and we start implementing the plan, everyone's going to see through that, I think, because it's just going to be the same thing with no war going on that will be prima facie evidence of the perfidy of the Israelis. Be like the past 20 years, really, that Netanyahu's been orchestrating this all along on a low burner in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, and in Gaza. He's been doing this all along. It's just been on a low burner. October 7th put it on a hot burner, and we do not know, truly know, who orchestrated October the 7th yet. We do not. There has been no definitive investigation. As he has promised a number of times, there has been none. And I suspect we're going to find out some things about October the 7th that make Bibi's comments on it a total lie.